Good morning, it's Greg Otten here with MaritimeGardening.com, and today I'm going to talk about garden pests, in particular the ones that tend to assault your brassicas, that is your kale, your broccoli, things like that. And I actually see a couple flying around the garden right now, the white fly, or the cabbage moth, which is actually a butterfly, white butterfly. So let's go through those and how I've attempted to deal with some of those things in my garden in previous years and this year in particular. The first thing is that we had a really bad winter a number of years ago, 2015 I believe, and it was an intense winter that caused a very, very late spring, and ever since that winter I've not seen a snake or a toad in my garden, whereas I used to see them all the time, and in fact they'd scare the life out of me sometimes. There's a white fly right there, right there, you see that? So those they fly around your garden and they lay eggs on your brassicas, and those eggs turn into amazingly camouflaged caterpillars that will really do a lot of damage to your greens. Ever since that winter, I had slug, the whitefly cabbage moth, cabbage maggot, and flea beetles in my garden. And these are things that are always present, and I've always had them around, but they've never caused enough damage for me to even do anything about them. In my garden, every garden I've ever had, everything's taken care of itself and everything's been fine. There's been a bit of damage from pests, but the plants tend to recover, and once they mature and get larger, they do fine, which is the goal for any permaculture garden. The plants are so healthy, the system's so balanced that you have good insects take care of bad insects. You've got beneficials like birds and snakes and other things coming in and taking everything up and just holding these populations in check. You're going to have them, but they don't do so much damage that you lose your crop or significantly have your yield decreased. But ever since that year, I've had severe problems here, and all of the conventional most environmentally benign, most environmentally friendly approaches to dealing with them, I have found really haven't had the kind of effect that I need to save the crop. For instance, for slugs, I've tried putting copper wire around my brassicas, and I've found the slugs still get at them. They went right over the wire and got at them. I tried coffee grounds. I tried grinding up eggshells in all kinds of different ways, putting them in my coffee grinder and making them fine, leaving them small and sharp in pieces. Snails crawl right over them, get at my brassicas. I tried coming out early in the morning at 5 a.m. and squishing them. I tried every single thing you can think of, all the conventional measures that you would read on websites like Mother Earth News that are very friendly. And I think they're good approaches, but I think they're really only practical if you're gardening on a very small scale. You've got, a couple 4x8 beds, and that's about it. When you're gardening on a scale like this, we've got this sort of size. If something happens in your area that throws the system off balance, and I believe that's what happened here, it's going to take a while for the beneficials to come back and balance things out. If things just happen in such a way that the harmful pests get a real foothold and their population just explodes. And the worst part about most of these things, the slugs and especially the flea beetles, is that they attack your plants when they're very young. So you'll have a row of very tiny seedlings, and the pest will come along like a slug and just eat all the caudal leaves, the first leaves that come out. It'll just come along and eat all of those leaves off the plant and just kill them all. Or the flea beetles, the same thing, those cotyledons, those little tiny leaves that come out first. The flea beetles will attack those and fill them full of holes, and the plants need those leaves to gather energy and produce the kind of photosynthesis that the roots need to send out the next leaves. So it's like a baby, an infant at that stage, and the plant can't handle being attacked like that. If you don't lose the plant, it'll be stunted or severely slowed down. So that's when you have a real problem with these things. So today I'm going to talk about I'm going to show you some examples of that kind of pest damage, and then I'm going to show you products I've been using this year, and I'll talk about products I've used in previous years as well. Products I'm talking about this today were all provided to me by the Safers company. They approached me. They haven't given me any money. They haven't funded me. I don't have thousands of dollars coming from Safers. They just gave me the products. They said, give them a try, and if they work, yeah, do a video or talk about it on your podcast or something. So I said, that's fair. So I don't know how much these things cost. I don't imagine they're too expensive, but I've been using them. So the first one is a slug and snail killer. So these are pellets. They've got iron phosphate in them. So that's or ferric phosphate. No, sorry. These have ferric sodium in them. There's two kinds of slug pellets. One's with ferric sodium and one's with ferric phosphate. Iron sodium, iron phosphate. This one has ferric sodium. I've read that Safers also has an iron phosphate product, and there's other ones like Slug Begon that have iron phosphate. And that's just an iron compound that's coated in something that tastes good to snails. They eat it, it destroys their digestive system, and they just crawl off somewhere and die and become fertilizer themselves. And this breaks down and just leaves phosphorus and iron, or a bit of phosphorus and sodium in your soil, which isn't really a big deal. And you know, your plants take some of those things up anyway. So I found this to work quite well. I've used it this year. I used a similar product, different company, last year, and that seems to, you know, you look at your plants, and if you start seeing this, I only use this stuff when I start seeing the problem. And as soon as this problem seems to be under control, I stop using it altogether. A container like this will last you multiple years, even in a garden this size, 2,500 square feet. And once the plants are large, you know, they have a decent size, you don't need it anymore. You can just stop using it, right? And the whole idea is, I mean, you still want those things around because you want the things that eat them to come in and eat those pests, right? So you don't want to eradicate them from your garden because you don't want to have to keep using products like this, right? If you don't have to, the idea is you're cooperating with nature. It's a permaculture approach, and everything just takes care of itself, and you don't have to, you know, you have minimal inputs and your garden just takes care of itself. That's the goal. But in the meantime, you don't want to sit back and watch your entire garden disappear. It's supposed to be feeding you, not insects, right? So that's the slug and snail killer. It's just pellets. And you might want to apply that about once a week until you see the plants are doing well and the problem seems to have subsided, and then you can stop. Put it aside and use it leave it for next year. You only have to use that early in the year. This one here is a miticide. It's a spray. I use this for the flea beetles. They tend to be very problematic, and you can use this end-all, or you can use rotenone, which is a powder. I don't know if Safers produces that. They didn't send any to me, so you have to look into that yourself. Rotenone powder is a poison made from some sort of root, I think, that the insects eat it and it kills them. This is a contact poison. You spray it on them and they die. It's got pyrethin in it. It's an insecticidal soap, but it's got pyrethin in it, which is a compound that's derived from chrysanthemums, I believe. As far as I understand it, toxins derived from chrysanthemums have been used for a very long time to control pests in gardens. So this is nothing new. This is just a new product. It's a concentrate. You mix it with water. You put 100 milliliters to 2 liters. That's the ratio I use. You mix it up in a spray like this, right? A spray can like this, and you spray it on. And it's a contact pesticide, so they have to be around when you're doing it. So, you know, be around in your garden, observe when the pests are active, when you can see them. Flea beetles are very hard to see, but the damage that they do is very obvious. I'll show you some examples of that today. And it's also, I guess, in a sense, very satisfying to just spray them to death, right? And this breaks down very quickly. You want to do this, spray this on or when they're active. And then I believe it has some sort of, you know, like a almost the way bug spray would work on you. It kills them on contact, but some of it stays on the plant, and for about a day they might just not like the taste of the leaves because it's got some of that stuff still on it, so that's still good. This stuff here is for cabbage moths or cabbage worms or cabbage maggots or white fly caterpillars, whatever you want to call that. This is Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a bacteria. It's a naturally occurring bacteria that they've, I don't know if this is synthesized, I don't know how they manufacture this, but anyway, it's a concentrate, and it is using a bacteria that occurs naturally in nature that kills the larval stage of that moth or that caterpillar. So when the caterpillar starts eating the leaves, when you see those white flies flying around your garden, they're little white butterflies, that's when you start noticing, it's a waste of time to apply this before the right time because it breaks down very quickly. You want to spray it on at night, and they'll eat in the evening, they'll eat in the morning, and then they'll hide from their predators. So you want to spray it on in the evening. Apparently sunlight breaks it down in a matter of hours, so it doesn't stay very long in the environment. It's not harmful to human beings. It's always good to wash your plants anyway, but this kills caterpillars. It's a caterpillar killer. They eat it, they die. Very effective. I had reasonably good. I didn't use this last year. This is my first year using this, and I haven't used it yet. Okay, so I'm not, with this product here, I'm not speaking from experience. With the other two, I used them this year, and they got my pests under control. This one we'll see. I see the white flies around, so I know they're laying eggs, and I know I'm going to have the problem, so I'm going to use this. So just mix it with water and spray it on. Okay, so let me show you an example of, I think everybody knows what slug damage is, and it's pretty easy to identify if you've got a slug problem. You just go out in your garden at like dawn, 5 or 6 a.m. when it's still dewy and not too light outside, and just look around where your plants are being damaged and see if you can see some slugs. If you see slugs, especially if you see them eating your plants, you have a slug problem, you need some slug bait. But what does flea beetle damage look like? Let's come with me and I'll show you. Alright, so here we've got a garden that I've got some kohlrabi growing in. I believe this is kohlrabi. And number one, I made a dumb mistake. I had brassicas growing in this garden bed last year, and I planted them in here again. I just didn't think about the day. I moved these from another part of my garden where they were started under plastic, and I was just trying to get stuff done. It was raining pretty hard, and I was just trying to get stuff done in my garden. But I forgot that I'd had brassicas growing here before, so of course all of those flea beetles had set up shop, and they were just ready and raring to go. So number one, don't plant your brassicas in the same place every year. Move them somewhere where there was a plant growing that those things don't like. I'll show you an example of that later. Anyway, these plants have been attacked by flea beetles, so let me show you what that looks like on the leaf. I don't know if you can see that, but this leaf down here, it's got lots of tiny little holes. These were being attacked. Here's another leaf over, where are we? Right there. Let me get close to that. See how it looks like it's been, someone took a shotgun to it? You can see holes, but there's also these little just dents, right? That's what they do. Here's another plant over here. Right there. See how that's the cotyledon, that's the cotyle leaf. It's been shot to pieces. These are tree collards. I've never tried planting these before, but they were getting attacked pretty hard. And if I hadn't treated them, they wouldn't have got to a point where they send out these secondary leaves, right? Secondary leaves aren't doing too bad, and I assume from there on in they're going to be fine, because that seems to be my experience. When I moved these kohlrabi in, and I find kohlrabi in my garden anyway particularly susceptible to these pests, right? I was getting this. That's flea beetle, right? And a number of them have that problem. So they were getting hit pretty hard, so I sprayed them with the Endol about once a week, and seems to have gotten it under control. The new leaves are doing pretty good. There's the odd hole, but that's not a big deal at all. New leaves are doing better, and I expect better and better results as they go on. So that's how I dealt with that. So that's how I dealt with the flea beetles in this garden. The smarter thing would have been not to have planted these here. I should have planted them somewhere 8 or 10 feet away, at least to confuse the pest so that the baby plants can get established before they move in. But once the plant is large and established, they seem to be able to take attacks from different things, especially if you've got healthy soil and a healthy system. It's when they're really young, it takes a week for the thing to germinate, and it takes a week for that seed to start coming up, and then if they're killed, you just lost 2 weeks, and you got to wait that much longer for the food to appear in your garden, which is a bit of a drag. So let me show you another spot here where I didn't have that problem because I used the right approach, and I didn't need any pesticides at all. Alright, so this is what I call my kale salad garden. It's a garden with Brussels sprouts, kale, and chicory. Now, chicory's fine. If you ever taken a leaf of chicory and tried to eat it, it doesn't taste that great. It tastes good with things, but on its own it's a bit bitter. It seems to be pretty pest free. But this garden having any real problems. I mean, let's just try to take a closer look. Take a close look at it. I've got some onions growing in between the rows. I like to grow onions with my brassicas. Seems to confuse pests a bit, but I don't believe that's what's kept them fine. I think the reason this garden is doing so well, this is mid-June when I'm filming this, I think what's allowed this garden to do so well is simply the fact that I grew tomatoes in it last year, and slugs really don't think much of tomatoes, and flea beetles don't think much of tomatoes. So, and neither do cabbage moths. Although the cabbage moths are just starting to show up here, so I expect them to lay their eggs in here, and I'm going to have problems. I grew tomatoes here last year, and all I did is move them up one bed, so that bed there has tomatoes this year. It's still quite early in the season here, so it doesn't really look like much of a tomato bed, but trust me, in a month or so it'll look pretty good. Another good trick is to start your brassicas under plastic early in the year before those pests, the slugs and flea beetles, really become a problem. These 3 kale here are lacinato kale, or some people call it dinosaur kale, and I've had real problems growing these in previous years, but this year I started these in my cold frames in mid-March and let them mature, and I moved them out during a rainstorm about a week or so ago, and they seem to be doing fine and they're not getting attacked. The previous year when I tried to just seed these not under plastic, they were destroyed. And they grew, but they were kind of pathetic and kind of unimpressive, and really I didn't even get to eat them. They really just fed the insects in my garden. Total fail. So this year they seem to be okay. I got some more a little further down there. So I'll definitely take that approach again, because I really like these kale. I find them really good eating. Of the kales, I grow Scotch curly kale, red Russian kale, and this lacinato kale. I like this one the most, but I've had a really difficult time growing it in recent years because I find it, maybe because I like it the most, the pests like it the most. Here's a garden with red Russian kale, and it seems it's doing fine. Now, these were all started under plastic under one of my hoop houses, if you check out the hoop house video, in mid-March, and they took off great. And then when I moved them out here around the 1st of May, they started getting attacked really bad. Not by slugs. This garden had zucchini in it last year, and slugs really don't think much of zucchini. They'll attack the baby cotyledon leaves, but really once the real zucchini plant starts growing, they don't care for it. So that was a good move, planting it, having the kale follow zucchini. But the flea beetles had been rampant in the adjacent garden bed. So when they came around, they just went straight for this kale, and they were starting to attack it. So I sprayed it with that Endol once a week, and now the plants are doing fine. Look a little bit closer. Right, they look good. There's a cabbage moth right there, laying eggs. There's one right there laying eggs all over my brassicas. You. Yeah, anyway, I've got a solution for your children. Your children will rue the day you laid eggs on my kale. And your children's children. Alright, so anyway, they're doing pretty good. And just for interest's sake, these were all started under plastic and in early March, and they're doing fine. But it's interesting to note that there's a garden over here, just as an experiment last year. Come on. Okay. These were all moved from another location. They were started early in the year. But over here, let's move over to this garden. This is a garden my kids put plants in, or I intended to put plants in for my kids. They like eating kale, so we were going to grow kale in here anyway. But last fall, because I'd collected my own kale seeds, I sprinkled them all over this garden, and they just came up on their own. These are supposed to be red Russian kale, but they don't have any red. If you look at one of the leaves, it's white Russian kale, I guess. The previous version, the stem has a bit of redness and then there's red veins. So there's another cabbage moth flying around in there. Unbelievable. See, they're around today. So I'm going to have to spray that stuff on soon. You can notice the damage because there's holes in your plants, and there's also caterpillar poop all over your plants. You'll just see a path of caterpillar poop. Anyway, the interesting thing is that these came up on their own. I didn't start them early. They just came up on their own. The seeds were here all winter long in our, cold Canadian winter, and these are the same size, and in some cases, some of these are actually bigger than the ones I started under plastic in March. Right? These didn't even germinate till late May, and now it's mid to late June, and they're the same size as the ones I started in March. So I don't know if it's going to happen every year, but certainly next year, the bed I intend to put kale in, I'm going to try putting some seeds. I've got a lot. When you save your own seeds for kale, you get thousands of seeds, right? And I still got some from that particular variety. So I'm going to leave some of these in the ground, the biggest, best ones, to save the seeds from them. But I'm definitely going to spread some seeds around this fall to see if they come up next spring, because it's a lot easier, isn't it? Alright, so just a quick video on the brassicas, strategies for growing successfully, and how to deal with the pests that can attack them in your garden. I want to thank the Safer's Company for providing these things. Really looking forward to trying this. It's obvious I need something because they're laying their eggs. You can pick them off and squish them, but when you're gardening on this scale, it's a bit much. It's a little tedious. Given that this is argued to be environmentally benign, worth whatever this, I don't know if this costs $10 or $15 or whatever, but definitely worth it. I find most of these things, you only need them for a short period in the year, and you can use them for multiple years, even in a garden on this size. So I found all of this worked great, saved my kale, and this has definitely controlled my slug population. So happy with all that stuff. Alright, so thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. Yes, I have a permaculture garden, and if you read the literature, you're not supposed to need any of this stuff. And my long-term goal is to not need any of this stuff. But for now, I need to get the situation under control, and I want to yield. And for now, I'll do it. But I'm trying to keep the use of it to a minimum, because I do want to attract the beneficials in to attack those things. And if they're not here, the beneficials aren't going to set up shop here. I want the beneficial insects and animals to set up shop and come in and take them out. So I'm just using these to a level that's going to get the situation under control and balance. And of course, hopefully, maybe this will be the year I see my garter snakes again, and they can take control of this place like they used to. Alright, so thanks for watching. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, check out the podcast, maritimegardening.com, and read my column in the Local Express. Alright, until next time, get out there and get at it, and thanks for watching.